Start at 7 p.m. in Gardner, Kansas. I'm going to call the Gardner City Council meeting to order. Please raise my pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. I don't know how they're going to hear me on the microphone if I go around to do the proclamation, so we'll do our best here. All right, I have a proclamation. I think we were here about this time last year, weren't we? I believe so. For Kylie. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good seeing you. Thank you so much for coming. I think it was about a year ago. I'm going to read this proclamation out, and hopefully, see if we can do this with the microphone so that people can actually hear it, because you deserve to be heard on this. So last time we were here, you had just gotten I believe, a bronze medal at competition for the state, correct?
Yeah.
Or was it for the region? I think it might have been for the region. Yeah. Well, now you've really upped your game, and since we're going to be talking about champions this week, I would just like to do this proclamation and then let people know that there's another champion in Gardner. Whereas Kylie Hayes, sophomore at Gardner Edgerton High School, recently represented the state of Kansas in the National Field Archery Association's 2020 National Outdoor and 2020 National Indoor Championship competitions, and whereas the NFAA 2020 Outdoor Championship competition consisted of 5 national-level archery events over 6 days, of which Hayes competed in 3 events. Whereas after 6 days of competition, Hayes finished 4th nationally in the NFAA Outdoor National Field Championships, 3rd nationally in the NFAA Outdoor National Target Championships, and 1st in the First Dakota Classic Championships. And whereas the 2020 Indoor Championship required competition in 2 NFAA 300-round courses. That's a lot of arches, man. And whereas after 2 days of competition, Hayes scored 599 points out of a possible 600 points for the tournament, shooting a perfect score of 300 points on the 2nd day of competition, and ranking in the top 15 in the nation. And whereas Hayes will now have the opportunity to compete for a placement on the U.S. Junior National Archery Team. And whereas Hayes is an avid archery enthusiast who has placed in countless shoots over the last 4 years and currently holds 3 state records. Now therefore be resolved that I, Steve Shute, Mayor of the City of Gardner, Kansas, do hereby recognize Kylie Lynn Hayes and ask our citizens to join in celebrating Kylie for her accomplishments and inspiring example of commitment to excellence. Thank you so much for representing Gardner in the way that you do, and I'm sure you'll be an amazing asset on the USA Archery team, and this is for you. Thank you very much.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Good work. I couldn't hit the target if I were 3 feet away from it. So that's amazing, and I can't even begin to describe how difficult of a feat that is to achieve. So thank you again, Kylie. All right, presentations are over. We're going to move on to public comments. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to make comments about city matters or items on the agenda that are not part of a public hearing. If you wish to come forward, there's only 3 ground rules. One is you need to stay within a 5-minute time limit. There's a clock over here to my right, your left. You can come over and speak for up to 5 minutes per person. The other 2 items are no profanity and no personal attacks. If I sense that there is a move in that direction, then I'll have to gavel you down. But I've never had to do that in the 3 years that I've been at this placement on the dais. So if you wish to come forward, please come forward, state your name and address for the record so the city clerk can get that information and be heard. Hey, Dave.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. Dave Dravetta, 735 North Mulberry Street, here in Gardner. I promise to behave. I'm actually here this evening to speak in support of the appointment of John Tramble Jr. to fill the council vacancy created by Rich Melton's resignation. John is here this evening if those of you who don't know him. John is currently an area realtor and has been in that role for just over 6 years. Prior to that, he served as an air traffic controller for almost 22 years after serving in the Air Force. I point this out because that experience is a clear indicator of an ability to work through challenges in a calm and steady manner. John certainly has the strength of character to fulfill the to fulfill the role of council member. He is open to and welcomes input from all sources. He's very even-tempered and reacts to situations with a calm, cool demeanor. He is active in our community as a member of the Gardner Rotary and the American Legion Leroy Hill Post 19. He has no public ties to any political party. Quite frankly, I could not hazard a guess as to what his party affiliation might be. The nature of city governance is such that political motivations are not helpful and are often detrimental to the operation of a local community. It is important to point out that he would not be a controversial appointment. A review of his social media posts only demonstrates his devotion to his wife Cynthia or pictures of his 2 rescue pups. He does indicate a desire for a Chiefs win on Sunday, which might not sit well with the mayor, but should not create general anxiety in the community at large. To close, council appointments are an opportunity to bring new ideas and perspectives to the governing body. John would bring an attitude of care and service to our community, and I encourage you to allow him the opportunity to serve. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it. John, just a question. Did you put in your application?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. That's important. The deadline is today. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there any member of the council? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I forgot. You do have public comment. Okay, so here's the public comment. Thank you for keeping me straight, City Clerk. Believe me, she does that a lot. Okay, public comment. This is being written into the record. We do not have an address, though. That's the only problem. But.
It's 530 West Washington Street.
No, it's not on here, but that's okay. Thank you. You know it, so that's all that matters. This is from Pete Pace in Gardner. To whom it may concern, can we please vote tonight to allow fireworks on February 7th, even if it's only for a couple of hours? We could be the talk of the town if we allowed fireworks to celebrate another Super Bowl and at the same time legally show our support to the Chiefs. We can't have discussion on this right now, but I'm sure it will come up in council updates. Thank you very much, Pete, for your public comment. All right, now we will move on to the consent agenda. Is there any member of the council who wishes to remove an item from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion Baldwin, second Winters, that we approve the consent agenda. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, any abstentions? Consent agenda passes. All right, we have nothing on planning and zoning, nothing on committee recommendations or old business. New business item number 1, consider the appointment of a public works director. City Administrator Jim Pruding, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for removing the hat. This is to consider the appointment of Kellen Headley to the position of Public Works Director. We received, I believe, 7 resumes for this position. We selected 3 qualified candidates, myself, Community Development Director Dave Knopick, Utilities Director Gans Garcia, and Alan Abramovitz. Interviewed all 3 candidates. Kellen was the unanimous choice of the panel. He comes to us from the Navy. He spent 20 years in the Navy. One of the things that we focused on was how his experience would translate into the public sector. And we spent quite a bit of time with him in the interview. And then I spoke to him individually a couple times. He has, even though his projects have been in the Navy, he has extensive experience working with civilians and working with local and state jurisdictions on large projects. So I'm confident he's got a good personality. He has strong leadership ability. I'm very confident that he'll be a strong addition to the staff. Recommend approval.
Is there any public comment on new business item number 1? Seeing none, questions for the city administrator on this appointment?
Mayor, I don't have any questions. I do appreciate Kellen's service to the U.S. Navy. Professionally, I work for a company that is an Ability One contractor to the military as a whole, and I know that, and my ratio may be a little off, but I believe it's 3 to 1. There's contractors or civilians in a 3 to 1 ratio for every man or woman serving in the military, and I think he'd be a good fit based on that ratio and based on his experience. And I believe he'd also bring kind of a new filter to our organization. So I'd support this.
Okay. Yes, Mark.
I just wanted to say thanks in your presentation for addressing the translation, because reading through his resume, it's impressive. But you know, from an educational perspective and from those projects, they weren't directly tied to civil engineering.
Correct.
So that was my main concern. It sounds like if he was a unanimous choice and you believe he'll be able to handle those projects well at that level, then I'm good with it as well. So thank you.
And he teaches leadership at the Naval Academy. So was an impressive interview. So I think he'll fit in very well.
Yes.
When will he then? Does he have any
He will
kind of
start on
commitments?
March 1st.
March 1st.
That's the first day he's available. Yes.
Okay, great. Anyone else? Tori? No? Okay. All right, seeing no other comments or questions, I will move on to a motion on new business item number 1.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Gregorczyk, second Baldwin, that we appoint Kellen Headley as the new Public Works Director to start on March 1st. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? New business item number 1 passes. New business item number 2, thank you, Jim. Consider adopting an ordinance amending the City of Gardner's base salary structure and consider reclassifying a city position. You're back on the deck.
Staff recommends adopting an ordinance amending the City of Gardner's base salary structure for fiscal year 2021 and 22. I recommend approving the creation of the Deputy City Administrator position and reclassifying the Senior Management Analyst position to Deputy City Administrator. This position will oversee the functions of the Human Resources, Information Technology, and Building Maintenance departments and coordinate other administrative tasks and responsibilities as outlined in the job description. The position will assume overall project management responsibility for large city projects with project oversight authority of department heads and coordination with outside entities. Cost avoidance through alignment of project goals and timelines to minimize costly delays and project cost overruns will be an important benefit of this position. Another area of need related to council feedback is a reduction of the use of consultants to complete city plans and studies. Amy will be responsible for the maintenance and updating of existing plans and studies and the creation of new ones whenever practical to self-perform those tasks. Salary survey was completed by a human resources manager, and as a result is recommended that the Deputy City Administrator position be assigned to salary grade 10. The Senior Management Analyst position will be reclassified to Deputy City Administrator, and the incumbent Amy Nasta will be appointed to that position. There will be no additional FTEs added to the city budget. Suggested motion is to adopt ordinance number 2694, adopting a revised City of Gardner base salary structure and reclassify and appoint Amy Nasta to Deputy City Administrator.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jim. Any public comment on new business item number 2? Any questions for Jim? I know you've got some
said the FTE was in the budget. Is the money amount in the budget? Like the full-time employee
it'll-
number?
No,
But is the
it'll
actual
increase our,
increase?
no, it'll be an increase in that amount,
Okay, so that's not in the budget.
correct.
Okay. Will there have to be any additional training or classes that the deputy city administrator would have to take? Like, for example, that you had to take some extra schooling, et cetera?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay.
She
Was
will have,
there-
she will have opportunities to go to training as just a typical course of development.
I know ICMA has courses that would be potentially helpful
Yeah.
and useful in the future.
Okay, and then, I asked this in an email, but what was the process? It seems like this is a pretty high-level job
Correct.
position. What is the process? Why didn't we open it up for interviews like we did just the public works director that we just did? It seems like it's a very
Sure.
important position, and it seems like, I'm not saying that Amy is not a bad choice, I'm just saying, it seems like we should have opened it up. It's a big, high-level job, and the increase in salary is a pretty big one, especially during these times.
So it's always been my belief that if you have a candidate, qualified candidate within the organization, that candidate should be elevated to the position. Amy is an exceptional talent in my view. We have done this twice before. We elevated Chief Belcher to Chief of Police without going outside for interviews. And we elevated Matt Wolf from the same position to Finance Director, again, with no interviews and no outside. If I was to go outside, I'd be looking for Amy Nasta. And I don't believe it's fair to bring in candidates, whether internal or external, when I believe the perfect candidate is right in front of me.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yep.
Jim, I wanted to key in on a couple of different items. The first one, it might be better for Matt, but can you explain what the loaded rate is for this position? You speak of this results in a $37,000 salary difference, but what is the loaded rate? Because I don't think that $37,000 is all rate of pay. I think it's overhead of some sort.
Just to make sure, you're talking about what the 37,000 is, and to break it down a little bit.
Yes, sir.
Well, I believe it's around 31 was actually salary increase. With director level positions, there's a lot of meetings throughout the metro. So there's also a $4,800 a year vehicle allowance. Then they have an option of either getting a cell phone stipend, which is about $420, or a city issued cell phone, which is about $600 in expense.
Okay. The next thing I wanted to key in on, Jim, that you spoke of was cost avoidance.
Right.
I think that's a key word. And correct me if I'm wrong. I'll run through the three items that I have, and then correct me if I'm wrong. But we should see a cost avoidance in project overage. And I use Waverly 175th as an example. We should see a cost avoidance in self-performing studies and so forth versus sending tens of thousands of dollars to consultants.
That's correct.
And again, Amy's not going to fill that 100% void, but it should reduce the encumbered dollars that we have in the consulting bucket. And the last item would be really back to that consulting. We'd be able to realize an example of doing that in-house that might lead years down the road to bringing on folks that are subject matter experts / director level or thereafter employees that could fill more than one. And again, I know the directors are not filling just one job. They've got multiple hats, but having somebody as a subject matter expert would be able to give us the flexibility to self-perform that, again, not realize or avoid those subsequent costs. So is that a fair statement?
Absolutely.
That's all, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, in my mind, the improvements in efficiency and the cost avoidance, like Mr. Gorsick was talking about, that right there, I think we're gonna see huge improvements. I mean, I think it'll more than worth the investment in that. And then as far as going outside, I mean, I think if we've got the qualified candidate, why waste the time, the effort, and the dollars? I mean, if you know who you want, go for it.
Thank you.
All for it.
So, this one was interesting because we do have Amy. And if this position was just, you wanted it because we need it, and Amy didn't exist, right? We would have to be going through that interview process, looking at everything that you would be, and bringing us a candidate. And then we'd be looking to see, does this person meet those qualifications? So does Amy meet those qualifications as far as managing previous people? All right, now she's gonna be over 3 different departments. And then does that fit with a director level, you know, a pay scale 9 versus pay scale 10? So looking at that closely, at first I felt like this was a pay scale 9 position, even before the HR manager provided that information. And then I looked at it further and decided that because it's a director position plus all of the things that sounds like others have brought up too, that we'd like to see a lot of in-house project management. I see that we're gonna hopefully save some dollars in that regard, and that is the metric that I will be looking at the most. I think anything in regards to this being Amy is mute, because if you have the candidate, you have the candidate, just like Kellen, right? Amy could have been outside. So I support this, and I'm looking forward to it, and hopefully we can save a lot on those project development costs.
Yeah, well, that's the main impetus for this move, by the way, just because one of the biggest complaints that I've heard from folks that are doing business with us in the community, or the folks that are outside, is that it just seems like we haven't been nearly as responsive sometimes for some of the projects and things like that. Well, Amy has a wealth of project management knowledge and understanding. She's a strategic thinker, which is very important in this role, and will help us to really streamline our processes internally to turn around these projects much faster. So, as I said, opportunity cost or cost avoidance is a big part of this. So, I'm looking forward to this, and
Well,
I know Amy's very qualified for this role.
Well, and hopefully we'll listen to her instead of some consultants that we disregard.
I'm counting on it, Mark. So, all right, anything else? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on new business item number 2.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Winter, second Baldwin, that we adopt ordinance number 2694. It's an ordinance adopting a revised City of Gardner base salary structure for the fiscal year 2021-2022, and to reclassify and appoint Amy Nasta to Deputy City Administrator. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Baldwin,
Yes.
Councilmember Winters,
Yes.
Councilmember Gregorczyk,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts,
No. All right, ordinance number 2694 passes 3-1. Amy Nass is in the room here, and thank you, Amy, and congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, new business item number 3. Consider authorizing an agreement with the Gardner Chamber of Commerce. Finance Director Matt Wolf. I believe Jason Camus from the Gardner Chamber is also in the room with us tonight.
The proposed agreement is for 1 year, ending on December 31st, 2021. Proposed agreement would provide $40,000 in funding to the Chamber for business services. This is similar to the same level of funding in 2020. And all funding is proposed to come from the transient guest tax funds, which is located in the Economic Development Fund. And as the mayor pointed out, Jason Camus is here tonight, and I believe he has a few comments for you.
Great.
Thank you, Matt. Good evening, everybody.
Jason?
Good to see you guys. Haven't seen you in a while. So obviously 2020 was an odd year, you know, to say the least. Yeah, an understatement for sure. But what we learned from 2020 is that from the Chamber's perspective, much like the business community, we have to be flexible and be willing and able to pivot and do things differently. And so really all I wanted to share with you is, you might ask yourself, oh, what's the Chamber been up to for the last year? And some things were very visible, such as working with the city to do PPE supplies for businesses and residents and stuff, but other things maybe not as visible. And so I just wanted to share a couple things, then answer and then talk a little bit about this year. But we still hold as our three main things are to be a catalyst for business growth, helping businesses grow, convener to bring people together, whether that's leaders such as yourselves or community groups or businesses, and a champion for a stronger community. So that's really just spreading a good message about our community, why it's a good place to live and work. To that end, so some of the things we worked on last year, with the city, we partnered to provide PPE supplies to over 100 businesses and probably hundreds of residents at the same time at cost, which was huge. And it wasn't just because it was at cost, but it was because we were able to get that out before businesses could source it from anywhere else. And I think that's why it was such an important thing to do for our business community. Provided vital information about PPP and EIDL and other funding opportunities. We know that a number of businesses were able to get loans, and they contacted us for that initial information. We were able to provide them with funders or resources where to find that funding. We contacted and called all businesses. So, for some, we can't get a hold of some. Some will take our call. Members will usually take our call, but we know that back at that time, back in April, May, and June, it was a tough time, and that just allowed us to hear what they needed. As a result, one of the examples early on during COVID was restaurants. The struggle for our food service. So we produced a restaurant guide, a page document or it was probably a 2-page document that just told the community when our restaurants were open, what type of services, if it was carryout, if they had delivery, that type of thing. We also implemented a section on our website that had COVID-related information. We kept that up all the way until the end of the year. We started Good News Gardner, which is our bi-monthly Facebook Live show, really just to highlight kind of good things happening in the community, good things happening with our businesses. We will continue that. We actually, tomorrow morning, will be our first February show. I encourage, if you've never tuned in, tomorrow we'll be talking about vaccines and about vaccine distribution and what that looks like. And what I will tell you is a lot of our topics and a lot of the things that we can have may seem political to some people, and what we try to focus on is the economy. The bottom line is we want more people out participating in economic activity. So whatever that takes, that's what we're here for. We produced our 4th annual edition of GE Magazine, which reaches over 12,000 households in Southwest Johnson County. Some things that we do that people don't see. We assist harvesters for their monthly distribution, particularly in marketing support. We also do the same for the farmers market, as well as things like the citywide garage sale, which I have a gut feeling we might end up taking over, as Dawn and UPS Store have done it for a long time, and so I think that might end up. I think the chamber did it years ago, probably back when Todd was on the chamber board, and now we'll be probably getting back more into that. We also brought people together, and while we can't do that a lot, we tried to do it in responsible ways. Early in the year, we might forget that we did things like the locale grand opening, Olathe Health, the Family Medicine Center, the week before lockdown. And then, even during lockdown, Price Chopper, Go Car Wash, Daylight Donuts, Little Building Blocks, just groundbreaking here, which I know some of you were out there for that nice cold blustery day. Tourism promotion, we continue to do that. We can't obviously promote, people aren't traveling, but we have found little ways to do it through some of our partnerships with the Regional Destination Alliance, with Northeast Kansas Tourism. And I'm pleased to say, some of that really pays off because there's a new app, and I'd have to go into more detail about how it works, but through this app, it's called Autocast, we promote different trips. The idea, you've seen these taco trails or beer trails. Well, there's a coffee trip. And Ground House obviously is, it's a local favorite, but we were pleased to say out of the 15 communities, Ground House was the second most visited location of people throughout the metro area using this app. And so we do that, and that's 2 or 3 times a year, so things like that. We also added a newsletter, which we had not done a regular newsletter. We started that in April because we needed a way to connect with people. We reach over 1,000 people a week with our newsletter, and many of you probably all get it or have seen it. So obviously we're focused on both business and community information. And lastly, on what we've done, we've promoted local shopping. We can't take credit for having the great sales tax year that we had, but we like to believe that we encourage and push people to shop local. We do it at the holidays, we do it throughout the year, and we've put an extra effort on that this year. Internally, we've done, well as we could in a down year, in a rough year. We added 30 plus new members last year in 2020, which is great. We continued our strong relationship with existing members, and we measure that by what's known as the NPS score, your Net Promoter Score. Our score is 82, and typically that is like the level of Apple. That's the level of high-end, top of the line, and it's way above the chamber average. So our members generally like what we do. I want to say love us, but that might go a little too far. But they like what we do, and if we don't do something they like, they let us know. We updated the business list, and that might not seem like a significant thing, but it takes a lot of time to call all the businesses, because like I said, there are businesses who don't necessarily want to affiliate with the chamber, but we need their contact information just the same. So when we send out something, whether it's on our behalf or on the city's behalf, to all businesses to let them know about PPP funding, we want them all to reach it. We're not just here to serve just our members. We want the business community to be successful as a whole. The last thing, and probably what you want to know about, is how's the rebranding coming? So we started a rebranding we started it, and it's taken a lot longer because what we did is we partnered with Strategy, and they are a company out of Olathe. They have both a marketing and a technology side. So they're helping us in a little bit of both, but our brand analysis, I didn't print it out for you because the brand analysis is 60 plus pages long. All right, so they went in depth, but I did want to bring you so you can see, you got a sneak peek of our new logo and what our brand will look like moving forward. There's a little explanation there. And I didn't have these early enough. I just got these Wednesday last week, so there we go. I'll pass one over here. You guys can share. And I'll send one over. Oh yeah, definitely there. I'll pass one over here. So, you'll see the logo on there, and here's what I'm going to tell you. A logo is a logo. I mean, obviously it's what we're going to look like visually, but what the brand analysis has done is it's allowed us to kind of think about what Gardner is and who we are and how we interface with the business community and with the city. You'll see underneath the logo mark, there's a little bit of language about the city. Our logo is much more, I don't want to say complex, but we have different versions of it, and so for different uses. But you'll see in the last there is just an example of what a business card might look like. What this will end up being is we'll end up having a new website. We'll end up having somewhat of a new social media presence. We have new collateral that's being produced as we speak. So there's a lot more that goes into it. I would say we're 80-90% of the way done with the collateral's the last piece that will, and then certain things like the website don't happen overnight. That will take time for us to rebuild. And then we'll be doing signage and all of that. So we're excited about it. We've shared it with not too many people, but our board and some other professionals in the chamber industry. We got a lot of feedback from them. We really thought through the name. We debated a couple different variations. There's some more modern variations, such as the Chamber, Gardner, Kansas. And what we came back to is, you know what? We're the Gardner Chamber in 1975 when we were established. We added that on there, and we thought that was a really nice touch, and everybody we've talked to likes that. And what it says for us is we've had, before I took over 6 years ago, I think we had 3 names in 3 years, something like that. And then we have, and then we're Gardner Edgerton. So we've had like 4 names in about 8 years. And the bottom line is we want people to know this is still the same chamber. We're the same chamber. We focus on our focus and our efforts on the city of Gardner. And we're proud of that, and we're happy to do that. And that's what you have there. So 2021 plans, really the biggest things we're looking at doing our new resident bags a little differently. Obviously, COVID changed that up. So with the plexiglass and big bags and all of this, we have been visiting this idea of delivering them to households, to new residents. Kind of like the old, I don't know if they did it in Gardner, but 40, 50 years ago, towns had welcome wagons. That idea. And so we are going to start doing that again. I've got to make sure Chief knows. Okay, good. He just gave me the wink. Hopefully Chief knows about this. I did ask Erica last time I met with her. I said, does Chief know? Because I don't want to surprise him. She's like, oh yeah. So we are going to be delivering them to households with Erica Drinkard, the new community policing officer. We think that's a great way. It's a great partnership from the city. Danica and I have talked a little bit after we get this started to look at a custom bag and maybe a custom message on it from the city and from the chamber, but we think it's a great way to welcome people to our community. It's a great way for Erica to get out and meet people in the community, which is her goal, one of her goals, and for us to share that, you know, we're all here, we're excited about having people here in the community. So we'll be starting that hopefully here at the end of February. So we're just working through some final details on that. We're going to be looking at doing some ribbon cuttings and promotions for some of the businesses that opened last year that couldn't have them, and they weren't willing, either they weren't willing or weren't ready, or, you know, because of COVID. We're going to be reviewing GE Magazine and what that looks like, incorporating some of our branding and how that will play a part. One of the things that we had talked about for this year, obviously we set that aside, was the community leadership program. And I know Gardner U is taking a year off, and maybe he'll come back, maybe not. But I think we need to visit with the city and see, is this the time maybe to marry those two and figure out a different model for it? So I think this gives us time. Most of the chambers that run community leadership programs typically run them in the spring. So that would give us this year to prepare for next January if we decide that we want to do that here. We will start to revisit tourism plans for 2022 and what that looks like as the economy comes back. One of the things we started a year and a half ago was looking at association health insurance and how we might be able to facilitate that process for our business community, which would be open to all businesses as a way to provide health insurance. And the laws have changed in the state of Kansas in a way that would allow us to provide that through a provider, and so we're going to explore that a little more. And then we're just going to continue to work with existing businesses that are looking. We had 5 or 6, I think, in January alone, locally, that are looking to move across town and looking for space. And one of the challenges, obviously, we don't have a lot of open space, at least space that, you know, that's just open and broad. We've got you got to fit them in there, and you can't fit the 2,000 square foot into the 4,000, the 4,000 into 3,000. So continuing to help people there. And then we also have businesses on the small end that are still looking to come here. And we work with Greg, and I talk with Greg quite a bit, and that's kind of our focus at the chamber is on the smaller size, the mom and pop, the 1, 2, 3, maybe up to about the size of a Gardner pharmacy. And how do we help attract some of those, or not necessarily going out and doing attraction like Greg would do, but more so we're taking the inbound calls and then helping connect them with the right people, sharing a good message about Gardner and why they want to do business here. So that's kind of it. You have the contract in front of you, and the couple questions I would just throw out there for you is, if there's something in there you see, you're like, I don't really think the chamber should be doing this, or why are we doing it, or that, I would love to hear that, because we've kind of just gone from last year's with the idea that, you know, this is a workable document. We really want it to make it we want it to be a strong partnership, and look at how we can best partner with the city to provide good services to the business community primarily, but also the residents of Gardner. So that's it.
Thank you, Jason. I appreciate the presentation, very thorough. Public comments on new business item number 3. Seeing any questions for Jason or for Matt? Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Jason, for coming up and visiting with us. My first question is for Matt. What does our transient guest tax funding balance look like?
Surprisingly good.
Yeah.
We anticipated transient guest tax, which is basically a bed tax in the community,
Right.
to take a huge hit last year. It was actually, we had about $200,000 in revenue, and the balance is about $136,000 at the beginning of the year.
So the balance, is that after the Johnson County Economic Development and after Gardner Chamber?
Yes, and I think we had a small business assistance program out of that too.
Okay.
25,000.
Excellent. So that's in order. Yeah, Jason, I enjoy your newsletter. I really get a kick out of watching the Good News Gardner. I give credit to whoever that was that came up with that. One question for you. How many businesses did we lose during this trying time?
Lose, like go out of business, I probably could count them on one hand. Like physically, now you have to understand, it's a little hard to judge. It would be hard for me to track maybe home-owned businesses that we wouldn't necessarily be aware of. But thinking about through the community, I can think of 2 or 3 off the top of my hand, not many. I mean, Gardner was really, that's the question we talk about in the chamber realm a lot. I mean, our businesses were very resilient. We have some that are struggling, mind you, and we talk with some of them, and they're trying to find ways, and and they've had some lifelines through PPP and EIDL and so forth, but we have not lost very many. And even a very prominent one that just opened in February. Talk about awful timing for Jamie at the locale. I mean, you all were there, most of you were there. Beautiful space, great idea. Worst timing you could probably ever have. Events to start an event-based business, the month and then have COVID. But at this point, Restoration Church has moved in there, and the Hope Market and stuff. So we've been lucky to see some of that happen as well.
Yeah, I mean, I support the chamber. I think you know that. I support Greg over at Southwest Johnson County. The only thing I'd say, and I've said this before, is we'd love to see you more often than just annually.
Yep. Yep. Well, and I will say I was planning on coming in the fall, but I had thought about the whole rebranding thing, and I really wanted to be able to bring something back, and we weren't at that point yet. So, but I will make an effort to get here more often.
Fair enough.
Quarterly would be nice too. We could talk about the farmers market. We could
Definitely.
Talk about the
and we're starting to work on that. I mean, you'd be shocked at how many people have called in the last week and a half about the citywide garage sale. And then farmers market, we're meeting on Thursday to start talking about that for this summer. So people are ready for an active summer, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We do have a action here to authorize the agreement with the Gardner Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to entertain a motion on it. Thank you. Second. Okay, we have a motion, Gregorczyk, second, Winters, that we authorize the city administrator to execute agreement with the Gardner Chamber of Commerce for business services for 1 year, ending, yes? Oh, we already went to public comment.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did. Sorry about that. Yes, I'll go ahead and read out the motion. Authorize the city administrator to execute agreement with the Gardner Chamber of Commerce for business services for 1 year ending December 31st, 2021 in the amount of $40,000. More comments? Right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, any abstentions? New business on number 3 passes. That's it for regular business. Council updates. Does staff have anything for council? I'm going to start with Jason Bruce because I want to make sure that Gons is ready to go next. Jason.
Only thing that I have is hopefully everyone saw our brief 4th of July video that we sent out last week announcing our headliner Dylan Scott for our 4th of July celebration. We are super excited to have him. We're currently working on other talent and more information will come in the next few months.
Great. Thank you. Utilities, Gons. Nice to see your smiling face, sir.
Good evening. I had some news. We had a Zoom call this afternoon with KDHE. The news are not good, but after several minutes of discussion, I asked them the question if we can put the south wastewater treatment plant on the south end. And they said they had some reservations, but they will contemplate putting a $750,000 gallons per day plant. The preliminary calculations was looking at more 1.25.
Yeah.
But they believe that size will have a greater impact to Hillsdale Lake. So they're right now they're looking at a 750. Now the problem is that if we go with that size of plant, they're not willing to expand it in the near future.
Okay.
So it will be basically a one-time plant. So with that news, staff and GBA will start looking at what other alternatives we have.
Okay.
A 750 plant will probably last us for about 7 to 10 years. At that point, we will have to go and do something with Kill Creek.
Or,
So to me, it looks more of a throwaway option.
or would there be the option at that point, is that no longer near term, and we could possibly look at something at that point?
Well, you know, we can always hope for the best in the future, but based on the information we have right now, that doesn't seem possible.
So Gons, what's driving their change?
Yeah.
Well, originally, if you may remember, we were trying to put a package plant so we can service the Grata or Prairie Trace. And they rejected that idea. So the next step was to put a permanent facility. And the original estimates was close to a 750,000 gallon plant. With the additional or potential development coming in over the next few years, GVA estimated that we needed a 1.25 million gallon plant,
So that's half of what we need.
which will be a little less, a little more than half.
Yeah. I think we need to look into this a little more.
This call today, we haven't had a chance to follow up on, but
Yep.
yeah, we'll follow up and see what alternatives we have. Somebody that, the director that was there for years and years left relatively recently. So I think that may be part of the issue, but we're gonna clarify it.
Yeah.
And push.
Thanks for the note, though.
Yep. Well, it's always, was it good news in advance is, I mean, sorry, bad news in advance is good news. So we know that this is happening, we're just continuing to work. And rather learn this before we get started on site acquisition and things like that, not after. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Gons. Anything else?
No, that's all for me for tonight.
Okay, great, thank you. Chief Belcher.
Nothing tonight?
Okay, City Clerk?
Nothing from me.
All right, Finance Director Wolf.
Nothing tonight.
All right. City Attorney.
Nothing from me.
Okay. Tim McEldowney, Chief Engineer.
Just one thing. Last week we opened bids for the demolition of the old police department, so we'll be moving forward with that contract.
Do we know when that's going to take place? So there was a question that was posed to me not too long ago about that.
Yeah, so we'll be taking that to council in 2 weeks, and I would expect construction probably a week or two after that. Kind of depends on how quickly we collect all the information from the
Sometime
contract.
late February then? Late February, early March?
At the earliest.
Okay. David Nopick.
Just a couple of quick items. I will be getting with the mayor and council member here regarding the Economic Development Citizens Group and getting a meeting started there. I was hoping to get something out a couple weeks ago, but had a personal issue come up, so took care of that. And you should be getting an email from me. I want to check on some dates with folks to make sure that'll work. Also, just for general knowledge, next month we will start meeting, the Planning Commission will start meeting on the 4th Monday of every month instead of the 4th Tuesday.
That's good. That'll be, I think, a better attendance. People are used to having things happen here on Monday nights, so good. Thank you. All right.
Mr. Mayor, I did have one thing.
Yes. Yes.
That Jim brought to my attention. With former council member Melton's resignation from the council, wanted to see if there were any questions about the appointment process under our code, under the charter ordinance. I've worked with Sharon, looked at the language within the charter ordinance, and how that language has been interpreted and applied in the past. And that language has always been applied, that the applicable language hasn't changed for however long, 20 years. And it's always been applied where the individual who's appointed serves out the remainder of the vacating council member's term of office. So I think that was a question that had come up and wanted to bring that up. Are there any other questions? I'd be happy to try and field.
Do you think we should revise that so it's more clear? And-
Yeah.
Because you can read it both ways.
Yeah, so that's gonna come before you.
Okay.
We were going to take up a revision of the charter ordinance because with some of the changes when they moved the election date, we needed to revise that charter ordinance anyway.
Okay.
So that we were scheduled to bring that before you anyway. So I have worked on some revised language to make it clear that they serve the remainder of the term.
Okay, thank you.
And you're talking about Charter Ordinance 26, correct? And so,
I thought it was 27. but-
27, I'm sorry. So 27, so we're gonna have to look at that anyway because of the fact that we are probably on the threshold of a first-class city designation, are we not?
I can't remember what that number
I
is.
think we're already qualified for it. We're already qualified for it on a voluntary basis, but I believe that with the census numbers, we'll be right at 25, or darn close to it. So I think that this might be part of a longer-term clarification anyway that we need to make to all these ordinances because a lot of them are going to have to be revised for first-class status. So that's something we're going to have to discuss too, pretty shortly, actually. And I believe, didn't we have Amy identify the ordinances that would have to be modified in order to be able to comply with first-class status?
I've done some research on it. I haven't identified at least some of them.
Okay, so we've already started that process. Okay. Thank you. Anything else, City Attorney? All right.
So Ryan, are we gonna look at this when as compared to forthcoming appointment?
Well, so the charter ordinance, Sharon, is it?
Probably in March.
So it'll be after the fact.
Yeah, and as it relates to this question, the amendment that I made is simply intended to clarify the language as to what the past practice has been under the current language. So it wouldn't change anything that we're doing, at least the amendment that I've prepared and brought forward. You obviously could do something different, but really the amendment I'm bringing forward is just to clarify and make clear what the past practice has been in the legal language.
Yeah, and I don't know the temperature of the rest of the council body. My only concern, and I've been appointed before for a very short period, years ago, I think it was for 8 or 9 months. And the one thing that I learned during that appointment process is that I was not elected, and therefore I didn't feel completely compelled as if I was representing the community during that period of time. And so with respects to Councilman Melton's tenure that's left in his seat, it's approximately 3.5 years.
3 years.
3 years.
Less than 3 years.
Even better, but that's kind of my point. So we're going to have somebody in a seat for 3 years that wasn't duly elected by the community for 3/4 of a normal elected term. I'm not opposed to the appointment process. I'm not opposed to continuing to keep the city government running, et cetera, et cetera. But I just think that we should have some caution as we go into this based on that amount of time. If Mr. Melton left in the last 6 to 9 months, maybe a year of his tenure, I'd have less pause. But with 3 years, and it's all about representation, that's kind of the hitch that I have.
One thing I would offer is, you obviously, whatever the will of the body is, you can make it so. One of the things I think, encourage you to consider is we have this rotation of membership, where you're not at a point where you could look at total turnover on the governing body. If you start to get off that schedule, meaning they're serving the remainder of the term, you could find yourself in a place where you have complete turnover of the governing body at a single election. The
Yeah, and I've teased that out, and I agree with kind of that pro and con look-see. But I still wanted to bring it up from a representation perspective. It's not about the appointment. It's just about the span of time that an appointee would be able to support the city as a non-elected member. That's kind of where I stand.
And one other piece that I also revised to clarify, because it has the same language, is that if you have a vacancy in the office of the mayor, the council president steps up into the mayor's office and would serve out the remainder of the mayor's term. And then you backfill the vacancy created by the council president's
Based on the leftover of his
promotion.
term.
And then that individual serves out the remainder of that vacating council seat's term. So that's another piece to think about as well.
So a lot to consider, but again, I'm just coming from it strictly from a representation perspective. And I agree with everything you said, Ryan, and I think those are the pitfalls we need to flesh out and understand so that we don't make the wrong decision. That's not where I'm headed, or at least my intentions aren't. So I appreciate the input.
Mark? I've got a couple of things, but to your point about the promotion of the mayor, I do think we want to look at that because if the mayor has a year term left and the council president, who currently right now, in this case, is not elected at the same time, if he's duly elected and then serves a year, then I don't think he should be outed. He should revert back to his previous seat. And then you would replace the mayor with a normal election because he was elected for that 4-year term. He just is holding a different position temporarily.
And that's one of the reasons I brought that up. I thought about that potential result. I think the challenge is you're going to be backfilling
Either way, I
that
understand.
individual, that council member's spot with an appointment. And then what? Then that other person loses the appointed position because, say, Todd went up for a year, then he would go back and that other person would lose the appointment. I mean, it's an outcome, but
Maybe
it's something I thought about, which is one of the reasons I brought it up.
Well, that's the root of appointment, isn't it? To fill a vacancy for a short period of time.
The rest of what I wanted to bring up was not so much the charter ordinance and those details, but the appointment process, right? So we've had a lot of appointments in this city. I mean, you two have both been appointed. In 2010, we had 3 different people replaced, right? 2 recalled, 1 resigned. We had another replacement in 2013 where you took that. So the thing that happened in all of those was each of the mayors said we need to do better with our process. Okay? So what I would propose is we look at and potentially we can go as deep as you guys want to go or as short as you want to go as far as changing our appointment process. But I think the process in this next appointment and going forward should be that we look at the first runner-up in the election. So, and it doesn't matter who that person is, because inherently with an appointment process, we're playing politics,
Well, in my
depending on who the group is.
In my appointment, I was the next door.
You were,
Next
and I
door
looked that
mayor.
up to see that it happened already in that way. So, it wasn't a rule at the time, but it worked out that way. And I think it makes sense because there is a difference. We've all been in an appointment interview, right? I was appointed by Dave for EUB. Being interviewed and getting that appointment is completely different than running a full campaign and being elected by the entire city. So for somebody to put forth the time, the energy, the money, the openness to public scrutiny of going through a campaign, I think they should be the first opportunity to fill a position. So in that case, the the person that was the first runner-up actually applied in this case anyway, and I think we should seriously look at appointing her without doing interviews at all and changing the process long-term to not have interviews for this.
Well, I don't think we can change it this time. We've already published how we're doing it. I mean,
Change it anytime. It's governing body of rules and procedures.
well, I wouldn't agree with that. That's not right.
That's fair.
I mean, we've published it. We
Yeah,
said this is how we're doing it.
Yeah,
This is how we have to do it. We
we're-
cannot change it this
Yeah.
time.
We're into the interview cycle now because we've already accepted applications.
We've accepted applications, but we haven't done interviews, and there's no reason we can't change the process.
I tend to agree with, I mean, I think at this point, we're far enough along with this that we should continue with the route we're going. Now, we can all take that as a strong consideration, placement that person finished. But I think at this point, I think we're far enough along that we've asked for interviews or asked for resumes and asked for applicants that we should continue that process.
Well, then I also think we should change the process that we don't request applications until the next council meeting, because Councilmember Melton resigned after the meeting, right? So that appointment information went out immediately after the meeting, and we didn't get this opportunity to discuss this.
So how would you define that, Mark? Because it was in writing to the mayor on, and he can correct me on the date, January 9th?
No, it was not. It was not.
I thought it was this Sunday before our meeting.
There was a,
The date was of the meeting.
yeah.
But you got the email.
Yeah, when did you
Right.
receive the email?
Received the email. Oh goodness, I think it was Sunday. I think it was the day before. So that was Sunday.
So I guess my point that I'm making is that he put it in writing. It just, nobody knew about it until
Until he didn't want it.
Post-meeting.
Right,
He
he
didn't
want it
to be
publicly
publicly
announced, so since it wasn't publicly announced, I didn't feel it was appropriate for us to discuss it publicly.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see a resignation. If I'm resigning my position at work, it'd be effective most likely the day that I provided it, unless, they see fit to extend it a couple of weeks, yeah. But I see your point.
Yeah. As of right now, we have, how many applications, Sharon?
5.
We have 5 applicants.
And the application process is closed.
The application process is closed as of 5 p.m. today, correct? So, sense of the body?
I vote no, we're not changing it.
I get the sense that folks want to continue the way things are for this particular appointment.
I think at this point, yes.
Randy?
No.
I would have to say continue as we've done. I think your words, Mark, would have had more gravity had we known what we know now 2 weeks ago. And I don't know for what reason, it's none of my business. I wish him well, and I appreciate his service to the community as a council member. But I think had we known that, I think that the perspective may be a little different versus the application process opening, the emails going out from the mayor, which is a whole nother discussion. I just think that it would make more sense 2 weeks ago versus tonight.
Understood.
Okay.
Did anybody want to discuss his emails? Okay, I'll leave it alone.
What emails?
Yours after the meeting.
The email after the meeting? Okay.
It was a little sketchy, just saying. Sorry.
What do you mean by sketchy?
Well, there was
But
a notice. I think you could have told us. Instead of the watch your email for important news. I don't know.
I was honoring the wishes of Mr. Melton. He did not want to have this announced publicly until after the meeting.
But yet he made a video in the
After the
chamber
meeting.
and
After the meeting.
he wasn't even really in office anymore. He probably shouldn't have been using the room to make a video. Honestly.
He was actually waiting on me for a minute.
I know, but public people, just regular citizens can't go back there and use that room. So anyway, it's done, but I do think it was a little like I said, sketchy.
Alright. Anything else? Alright, let's move on to, updates from council to staff. Let's start with, the guy on the island over there, Mark Baldwin.
Do we want to discuss fireworks?
Sure.
Let's do it.
We just had some going off earlier.
I am all for fireworks. I love the idea, but I'm against it for the Super Bowl celebration. And the simple reason is the moment we open it up to that, do we do it for Monaco, Daytona 500, you know,
World
so-and-so does something else?
Now, I would
All the
be
time
op-
is too much.
I would be open to opening it up to New Year's Eve, though.
That I think is a separate discussion.
Yeah.
But yes, I think just doing it for an event, albeit one that a lot of people pay attention to and is important to many, is, you know, it's almost like picking
Alright.
winners and favorites in this case.
So the corollary to this is, and I've got to play devil's advocate here, you know a lot of people are going to be shooting off fireworks if the Chiefs win on Super Bowl Sunday. Does that mean that we need to strictly enforce those because there's going to be complaints?
I think enforcement should be as is any other day of the year.
Exactly.
I don't know, but if we're gonna make an exception, then we would make an exception. Without the exception, nothing changes, so I don't know why we would change the enforcement.
I think we have enforcement. Obviously, it's going to be harder to enforce because this
Yeah.
is going to be very short-lived. It's not like a whole evening of 4th of July celebration or et cetera. So
I mean,
I think enforcement is good.
Yeah, if you have normal enforcement and the police don't get there in time, so be it.
So last year,
With this being a sure thing, Jay's already prepared for all.
don't be so sure.
Well,
Anyway,
I would say in jest, what team is that you're cheering for?
well,
Perhaps the fine should be maybe looked at a little differently. But in all seriousness.
I strongly recommend that they have strict enforcement for people who shoot off fireworks if Tampa Bay wins the Super Bowl, because those people
No
are,
comment.
they're nutcases.
Yeah, no comment. But I'd have to agree with Mark, and I appreciate his position on that. I know fireworks is a passion of this community, and it's created some short-term economic burst. Not enough to buy a police car, but it has provided some short-term economic positive to our community. It brings the community together from a community perspective. We have a great city firework display, et cetera, et cetera. But I'd have to agree with Mark 100% that I don't think this is the time to open that can of worms. I think we should treat it like any other night that, you know, the Chiefs win a football game and move about our business.
Okay. Sounds like we have consensus. So we will move on. Anything else, Mark?
That's it.
Okay. Council President.
Sure. Just want to recognize from the consent agenda Bryce Augustine for recommitting to the Utility Advisory Commission, and Harrison Hall will be on the Economic Development Advisory Committee. So thank you for your service, and we look forward to working with you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations, Bryce and Harrison. All right, Councilmember Gorsick.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I would echo what Councilman Winters just spoke of. I spoke with Harrison Hall via email, and then I think we had a short phone call, but I'm excited. He's a new member to the community, and he's just looking for an opportunity to get involved, and I thought it was a great opportunity to share kind of some of my knowledge of the Economic Development Advisory Board, so I'm glad to see that he's on. And of course, Bryce, I'm glad that he's continuing. Jason, I guess I have a question for you and a positive comment. I'll start with the positive.
I'll take that first.
Not Jason, Chamber.
That Jason. You look this direction, and I don't know.
Thank you. You're both in the line of sight there.
I'll take the positive comment. You can give the question to him.
Well, the positive comment to Mr. Camus is thank you for coming in again. We look forward to seeing you more often. Jason, the positive comment is I think you have a lot little girls across the city that are super happy to have the daddy-daughter movie night. I haven't been to a theater and I couldn't tell you how long, so I'm, I guess, equally excited. Popcorn at the house is just not the same. So great opportunity, great out-of-the-box thought to you and your staff. I really appreciate you doing that. The next is for the pool. I saw that we had some advertisement out on social media for lifeguards and all that good stuff. And we don't need to get into the details, but I guess just how are we going to confirm the opening of the pool based on all this moving criteria, and kind of when is your drop dead date to not open the pool so that our community can understand? And I would suggest to the community that's listening that you buy your inflatable pools for the backyard like tomorrow, because summer is coming. But anyway, back to the pool. How are we going to handle that, Jason?
So right now, yes, you're right. We're going to have the applications that were due today. We will extend that probably a week, just based on numbers. Last week, the Kansas City metro area pool supervisors had a call, and a lot of the talk was about training. That's the main focus right now. This week is our statewide conference, virtually, of course, where state agencies from all around Kansas will get together and discuss what pool openings will look like. As far as dates, time frames, memberships, any of that stuff, I won't have anything like that for at least the next couple, 2-3 weeks at minimum. So right now our focus is to get the applications in, look at what we're doing as far as training goes, definitely keep you guys informed.
Okay, we appreciate that. And I know the community is, they're pro pool, and I think they just deserve the best, decision on behalf of safety, obviously, as early as possible.
Sure.
So, also on the pool, have we got everything ready that we spent money on a year or so ago with respects to leaks and this, that, and the other?
So it would have been, trying to think of what month. We had a couple of repairs towards the end of the summer season. We won't know until we fire it up this spring. So obviously, weather permitting, when that will be, we'll know more by that time.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, no problem. Tori.
Oh, good. Jason Bruce, Jason Hayes. Thank you for the announcement of the 4th of July. I thought the video was very impressive, and it was a good job, and I think it's getting people excited, especially since people don't have a lot to look forward lately, and it's like, everybody's like, yay, but it was a good video, and it was a good announcement. Thank you.
Thank you. Danica gets a lot of that credit too, because she scrambled to put that together for us, and it was very well done.
It was very well done.
Got to get a little bit of background on that. We weren't going to let the cat out of the bag for a while, except that the artist website had put it on their tour page, and so we had to make turn on a dime, I guess, to make sure that people didn't find out about it first there instead of.
Well, you did a good job. It was very impressive. Thank you.
Yep. So, thank you. Anything else?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
All right, great. Well, this is good. I'm in cloud. We've had some great things happening in terms of our financial stability and performance over the last year. We had a rough 2020 from the standpoint of just everything happening with pandemics and everything else. Our community has weathered it very strongly. We've had excellent financial management on the part of our finance department, and great leadership on the part of our department heads. We're turning the corner. Our revenues remain strong, which is a great thing. Our fund balances are strong. When we start looking at budget, obviously we have an evaluation coming from this year for 2022, and then we have a biennial budget coming in the middle of 2022. I think that we're going to be in a really good position to provide some relief for our taxpayers in the community at that point. But in the meantime, we've done a really good job of management. The move of Amy into the deputy administrator position is going to provide immediate and long-lasting dividends from the standpoint of project management and keeping our processes moving in a continual improvement curve from the standpoint of getting our timelines better, providing more efficiency, and I think that's going to only serve to provide us with even greater financial performance. So I am really, really excited about what's going to be happening in the next several months. And I'm not going to say go Bucks because people will start throwing things at me. Whoever wins the Super Bowl this Sunday, I'm going to be happy because if it's the Chiefs, I'm happy for all my friends and all my neighbors who are here in Kansas City. This is my home now. But I can't just let go of allegiances. I think people understand that from people in other areas. But anyway, I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion Gregorczyk, second Baldwin, that we adjourn. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Go Bucks!